Hello class, this is my last discussion video for this semester. This is now for week 17 to 18. The topic is all about corporation. So first, know what is a corporation. So let us define what a corporation is. So a corporation is an artificial being created by operation of law, having the right of succession and the powers, attributes, and properties expressly authorized by law or incident to its existence. If we are going to point out, no, so we have, based on the definition, we have these attributes of a corporation. So first, a corporation is an artificial being. So pag sinabi nating artificial being, it has a personality. We say it's a juridical personality, which is separate and apart na from its individual shareholders or members. Another thing is that it is created by operation of law. So unlike no, as compared to a partnership, na can be formed just or by just a mere agreement of the partners, corporation is unique because you cannot really form a corporation unless it is acted by the law. So this requires special authority or grant from the state. Another is the right of succession. So this is the capacity of the corporation to continue the existence subject to the period in the articles of incorporation. So right of succession, this means that the ownership of the corporation, which is in the form of shares, can just be transferred from one person to the other persons without affecting the operations of the corporation. So unlike a partnership, in a corporation, if the, for example, the original shareholder dies and he wishes to um, pass on his shares to his beneficiaries or heirs, then there will be no problem related to that because in a corporation, there is what we call right of succession. So, hindi kagaya ng partnership na walang right of succession. So, in case namatay yung original na partner and ipapamana sa kanyang anak, for example, yung ownership niya sa partnership, madi-dissolve yung old partnership. Tapos mayroong mapo-form na bagong partnership. So, in a corporation, because of this attribute na right of succession, so pwede rang mapasa-pasa ang shares or ang ownership without affecting the um, operations or the activities of the corporation. And lastly, it has power, attributes, and properties expressly authorized by law or incident to its existence. So, meron talagang nakastate kung ano-ano yung mga pwedeng gawin or what are the powers, for example, of a corporation as expressly authorized by law. Now, how corporation is formed. So corporation can be formed or it can be organized for any lawful purpose or purposes by any person, partnership, association, or corporation, singly or jointly with others, but not more than 15 in number. So this is a provision of the new corporation code of the Philippines na because before corporation cannot be organized by corporation. So meaning noon, dapat meron talagang personality or merong yung natural persons lang talaga ang pwedeng mag-form ng corporation. But with the passage of the new corporation law or corporation code in the Philippines, so inaalaw na makapag-form ng corporation ang mga corporation. So meaning incorporators, yung mga original organizers of the corporation can be corporation, association, or partnership. But of course, in a partnership, I just like to point out that hindi pwedeng mag-form ng corporation yung partnership for the practice of profession. Kasi 'di ba, ang sabi natin for GPP, hindi pwedeng ma-register as a corporation as what was stated no, in the previous discussions nato. Another thing is that corporate name should be distinguishable from that already reserved or registered for the use na if another corporation or if such name is already protected by laws, rules, and regulations. So, dapat yung pangalan ng corporation should be unique. It must be distinguishable from any other corporation because take note, corporation will have a juridical personality. So para siyang tao, no? The corporation can act or for example can enter into contract, no? So dapat meron talaga siyang identity, no? You can really identify, no? And you can establish the accountability of such corporation. So hindi mo 'yan ma-achieve kung pare-pareho lang ang pangalan ng mga corporation. So, ang ginagawa ng SEC, no, or ng SEC, no, or the Securities and Exchange Commission, because doon tayo magpaparegister ng corporation. So, ang gagawin nila ay isi-screen nila, no, i-check nila, i-verify nila if the corporate name that you are applying for na is not yet reserved or registered by another corporation. In that way, we can establish no, the identity of the corporation and most probably that is to protect no, the investing public. Now, we have here the rules on the validity of the certificate of incorporation. So take note, class, that the juridical personality of a corporation will commence no, if they are already issued with the certificate of incorporation. So parang nagiging no, parang equivalent ng birth certificate yung certificate of incorporation. So once the certificate of incorporation has been issued, the corporation can already commence its operation. So kasi parang napanganak na ng isang corporation. If a corporation does not formally organize and commence business within 5 years from the date of its incorporation, its certificate of incorporation shall be deemed revoked. So take note, no, kasi merong mga nagpaparegister ng corporation pero hindi pa agad magsisimula na ng business. So they are given 5 years na from the date of its incorporation para makapag-operate sila and makapag-start sila ng kanilang business. So, pag hindi sila nakapag-start mag-operate within 5 years, so ibig sabihin nun, mare-revoke ang kanilang certificate of incorporation. However, if a corporation has commenced its business but subsequently becomes inoperative for a period of at least 5 consecutive years, then the commission may, after due notice and hearing, place the corporation under delinquent status. So, yun. Nakapag-operate siya within 5 years, kaso lang, nag-stop siyang mag-operate, no? Nag-stop siya ng operation. So, if nag-stop siya ng operations for 5 consecutive years, then that corporation or it is possible that the certificate of incorporation also of that corporation will be revoked or mapo-forfeit na, no? Ipo-forfeit ng SEC or Commission or Securities and Exchange Commission. Now, a delinquent corporation shall have a period of 2 years to resume operations and comply with all the requirements of the commission or that the commission shall prescribe. So, Again, kapag na-fall sila dito, mako-consider sila as delinquent. So once delinquent, they are given 2 years to resume operations and to comply with all the requirements as prescribed by the commission. So otherwise, pag hindi nila ito na-comply, yun, mare-revoke na ang kanilang certificate of incorporation. Now, what are the advantages of a corporation? So we have here 5 advantages of a corporation. First, the corporation has legal capacity to act as a legal entity. So, ibig sabihin, the corporation, paki-correct na lang, they should be corporation. Pwede silang enter into contract na they can sue, they can be sued. So, para silang tao. Another is shareholders have limited liability and it has continuity of existence. So, ito advantage talaga ng corporation because the shareholders, the owners are only liable up to their contributions to the corporation. And also, there is continuity of existence because of yung right of succession. Then, transferability of share certificate, very flexi. The corporation will not be affected by mere transfers of ownership. Then there is decentralized management and the shareholders are not general agents of the business. So meaning, because of this centralized management, mas merong monitoring, no? Merong focus as to parang may core, no? Merong center point, merong mga accountable or mga accountable persons na italaga na to manage the affairs of the corporation. So, since hindi lahat ng shareholders ay agent ng corporation, so mas ano siya, mas makakontrol no yung mga activities especially on matters related to managing the corporation, entry into contract for example, no? So parang ang gulo naman kung maraming agents. Kasi 'di ba sa corporation for sure no, maraming owners 'yan kasi especially if the corporation is a public corporation, yung anybody can just buy their share. So parang ang gulo kung lahat ng shareholders ay magiging agent ng business. So at least it is that responsibility is already given to a centralized no a core na grupo which is in the case of a corporation that is no the board of directors. So sila yung merong highest authority in terms of managing the affairs of the corporation. And then of course this is also an advantage to a corporation. There is greater ability na to acquire funds. Kasi 'di ba kung malaki na ang company, malamang marami ding will have their or will put their trust no to let you borrow money na of bigger amount. Now, what about the disadvantages of a corporation? So first, disadvantage is yung complications to information and greater government control and in operation. So, kasi pag ikaw ay isang corporation, 'di ba, you cannot really start operating without the intervention of the law because it's really more formal, no? And since you will be dealing with more people, no, it is possible that many or the public will really be enticed, for example, or will be greatly affected with your operation. So that's why you are strictly monitored by the government. So for corporations, they are required to submit reports, no, annual reports to SEC, no, or the Securities and Exchange Commission. So yung, for example, yung audited financial statements nila, so meron silang sinasubmit sa SSC on an annual basis. So, second is the high cost of formation and operation. No? Kasi mas malaki, di ba, ang corporation. So, we'd expect that um, malaki yung amount na you will need when you form or establish the corporation. And of course, when you ultimately operate or start operate with your operations. Another is heavier taxation, and minority are subservient to the wishes of the majority. So heavier taxation dito because the as of now the corporate tax rate is 30%. So if, for example, if you earned say 100,000, yung mana-net out na lang talaga niyan ay 70,000 na lang kasi yung 30,000 ay i-remit no as your tax due to the government. Tapos yung minority daw are subservient to the wishes of the majority because sa corporation class ang labanan ay paramihan siya ng number of shares that you own. So if you own more number of shares, it would mean that you will have greater power. No, kasi for example, the election of board of directors will depend on the number of shares. So if you have a lot of or parang many number of shares na you own a lot of shares in a corporation, malamang ikaw yung isa sa magiging board of director because you'll vote for yourself, no? Sino naman ang gustong iboto ang ibang tao or ipagkatiwala ang pamamahala no ng pera na investment mo sa other people. So you would wish na to manage it yourself. So dapat maging director ka pero meron kang influence no sa operations ng corporation. Then is ito, disadvantage of a corporation. So kanina parang na-cite ito as um, advantage ng transferability of shares. However, there's also a parang negative side na of the transferability of shares because there's a possibility no na it might unite no or there's uniting of incompatible and conflicting elements to one venture. So, 'di ba, yung sa mga teleserye na yung um, kalaban or for example ang kontrabida sa una nga dato nga gidaog-daog ang bida, unya ang bida na dato na tapos hinahinay di ito ang bida nagapamalit ng share sa isa ka corporation until na in a board meeting mo appear na lang tong bida na mo claim na siya na ang majority na shareholder. So nga na no, so there might be this uniting of incompatible and conflicting elements in the corporation. So magsumpaki sila may laog dili na to mahimong board of director no pero kung dili pa na nakadaghan ang shares nga imo ang na-own in that corporation so malamang no magkagubot because um, walay walay ginatawag nga meeting of minds between the majority na mga shareholders. Okay. So, ang dami. So, in a corporation class, no, we have also this agreement, no. So we have this um, say requirement, no, by the Securities and Exchange Commission. So when you are going to submit your application, so dapat maka-provide din ang corporation itong articles of incorporation. So, ito yung mga content, no? Ito yung content ng Articles of Incorporation. So, nandyan yung pangalan ng corporation, no? Ano yung purpose, kung bakit ma-establish or mag-form ang corporation na to. Is-state yung whether non-stock ba siya or stock or non-stock ba siya ng corporation. Tapos, saan yung principal office, which must be within the Philippines. Kasi, diyan, kung saan yung principal place of office, most probably dapat doon yung location din or site ng um, stockholders meeting. Another is the term for which the corporation is to exist, no? If the corporation is not elected, perpetual existence. So, nandun din yung names, nationalities, residence, and addresses of the incorporators. So, incorporators, ito yung mga original owners no, na nagsabot na mo form of partners o corporation. The number of directors which shall not be more than 15, or the number of trustees which may not be more than 15. So, directors, if it is a stock corporation, tapos trustees naman ang tawag pang non-stock corporation naman. The names, nationalities, and residence addresses of persons who shall act as directors or trustees until the first regular directors or trustees are duly elected and qualified in accordance with this code. So if it is a stock corporation, the amount of its authorized capital stock, the number of shares into which it is divided, the power of each, names, nationalities, and subscribers, pila ang subscribe, no? How much of that is paid. The statement that some or all of the shares are without par value if applicable. Pag non-stock corporation, dapat nakastate ang amount ng capital, ang name, nationality, residence addresses of the contributors, and the amount contributed by each, and such other matters consistent with the law which the incorporators may deem necessary and convenient. No? So, dapat nakalagay na sa Articles of Incorporation. Another document is itong bylaws. No? So, ano ba yung bylaws? So, nandito sa bylaws yung how they are going to conduct the operations of the business. So, these are the information na nasa bylaws dapat. And also, this is a requirement of the SSC. So, the time, place, and manner of calling and conducting regular or special meetings of the Board of Directors dapat nakastate. So, ano saang time or manner of calling and conducting regular or special meetings and mode of notifying the stockholders or members thereof. So, the required quorum in meetings dapat naka-state din. The mode by which a stockholder, member, director, or trustee may attend meetings and cast their votes, the form of proxies of stockholders and members, and the manner of voting them. And then the directors or trustees qualifications, duties and responsibilities, the guidelines for setting the compensation, maximum number of other board representations that an independent director or trustee may have, which shall in no case shall be more than the number prescribed by the commission. So also the time for holding the annual election of directors or trustees and the mode of manner of giving notice thereof, the manner of election or appointment, and the term of officers nor the term of office other than directors or trustees, the penalties for violation of the bylaws, and in case of a stock corporation, the manner of issuing stock certificates. Such other matters as may deem or as may be necessary for the proper convenient transaction of its corporate affairs for the promotion of good governance and anti-graft and corruption measures. So, yan yung mga details na nasa bylaws. So, mas specific siya for a para mas smooth yung um, pag-manage ng mga corporate affairs. Okay? So, what are the powers of a corporation? So, first, to sue and be sued in its corporate name. So, pwedeng makasuhan, or mukaso gamit ang ilaang corporate name. So, baragay siya tao. So, to have perpetual existence unless the certificate of incorporation provides otherwise. So to adopt and use the corporate seal, to amend its articles of incorporation in accordance with the provisions of this code, to adopt bylaws na not contrary to laws, morals, or public policy, and to amend or repeal the same in accordance with this code. In case of stock corporations, to issue or sell stocks to subscribers and to sell treasury stocks in accordance with the provisions of this code, and to admit members of the corporation if it be a non-stock corporation. So, yun yung mga powers ng corporation. Meron pa, no? Next slide. So, to purchase, receive, take, or grant, hold, convey, sell, lease, pledge, mortgage, otherwise deal with such real and personal property, no? So, including securities and bonds. So, transaction of the lawful business of the corporation may reasonably and necessarily require subject to the limitations prescribed by law and constitution. So, yun, no? Para talaga siyang tao na pwede niya magawa ang lahat ng to. So, enter into partnership, pwede, no? Joint venture, merger, consolidation, or any other commercial agreement with natural and juridical persons. So, pwede rin makapag-donate, no? Provide, including those for the public welfare or for hospital, because these are desirable, no? Mga charitable, cultural, scientific, civic, or similar purposes, provided that no foreign corporation shall give donations in aid of any political party or candidate or for purpose of partisan political activity. So establish pension, retirement, and other plans for the benefit of its directors, trustees, officers, and employees, and to exercise such other powers as may be essential or necessary to carry out its purpose or purposes stated in the Articles of Incorporation. So, yun yung mga powers ng corporation. Now, let's proceed to the classes of corporation. So, there are two major classes of corporation. So, corporation can be a stock corporation or a non-stock corporation. So, yung stock corporation, these are those, which have capital stock divided into shares, na, and are authorized to distribute to the holders of such shares dividends or allotments of the surplus profits on the basis of the shares held. So, pag stock corporation, ito yung pwede makapag-receive ng dividends ang shareholder. So, ito yung parang profit sharing, no, sa isang corporation. Non-stock corporations naman are for charitable, religious, educational, professional, cultural, fraternal, literary, scientific, social, civic service, or similar purposes like trade industry, agricultural, and like chambers or any combination thereof. So, yun parang iba yung purpose na ng non-stock corporation. Ito yung mga purpose bakit na-establish ang corporation na to. Okay. So another class of corporation is this one-person corporation. So allowed na ito sa bagong law, no, na isang person lang, one-person corporation. What is this? It's a corporation with a single stockholder, provided that only a natural person, trust, or an estate may form a one-person corporation. So this is not be required to have minimum authorized capital stock, no, one-person corporation. Another is yung de facto corporation. So this is a due incorporation of any corporation claiming in good faith to be corporation under this code, and its right to exercise corporate powers shall not be required into collaterally in any private suit to which such corporation may be a party. So, de facto, no, yung marang mga kulang-kulang sa kanilang compliance to be recognized really as a corporation. So, may mga kulang, no, may mga non-compliance na in terms of the legal requirements to become considered as corporation. Itong corporation by estoppel, this is when all persons who assume to act as a corporation, knowing it to be without the authority to do so, they shall be liable as general partners for all debts, liabilities, and damages incurred or arising as a result thereof. So another is closed corporation. So within the meaning of this code is this is one those articles of incorporation provides that all the corporations issued stock of all classes, exclusive of treasury shares, shall be held of record by not more than specific number of persons not exceeding 20. All the issued stock of all its classes shall be subject to one or more specified restriction on transfer permitted by this title, and the corporation shall not list in any stock exchange or make any public offering of its stock of any class. So, notwithstanding the foregoing, a corporation shall not be deemed a closed corporation when at least two-thirds of its voting stock or voting rights is owned or controlled by another corporation, which is not a closed corporation within the meaning of this code. Any corporation may be incorporated as closed corporations except mining or oil companies, stock exchanges, banks, insurance companies, public utilities, education institutions, and corporations declared to be vested with public interest in accordance with the provisions of this code. So ito pag sinabing closed corporation, usually this is the corporation na yung mga owners ay relatives lang or family lang. So it's a closed corporation. So education corporation shall be governed by special law and by the provisions of this code. So trustees of educational institutions organized as non-stock corporations shall not be less than 5 nor more than 15, provided the number of trustees shall be in multiples of 5. So religious corporations shall be governed by this chapter and by the general provisions of non-stock corporations and so far as applicable. We also have this corporation sole. So this is for the purpose of administering or managing as trustee the affairs, property, and temporalities of any religious denomination, sect, or church. A corporation sole may be formed by the chief, archbishop, bishop, priest, minister, rabbi, or other presiding elder of such religious denomination, sect, or church. So that's corporation sole. So let's now proceed to the components of a corporation. So, sino-sino ba yung nagko-compose ng isang corporation? So, first we have the corporators. So, sino ang mga corporators? Ito yung mga tao, those who compose a corporation. So, corporator is a general term, and specifically, corporator can be stockholder or shareholder kapag stock corporation. It not be required to have a minimum stock or capital stock or as a member in a stock corporation. So, pag corporator, that's a general term. Kung ang corporation ay stock corporation, ang tawag sa kanila ay stockholder or shareholder. Pag non-stock corporation naman, ang tawag sa kanila ay members. Next is incorporators. So, yung incorporators are those stockholders or members mentioned in the articles of incorporation as originally forming and composing the corporation and who are signatories thereof. So, yun, mga original na nag-organize para mag-establish ng corporation. Then we have shareholders. Again, as we have mentioned, these are the owners of a stock corporation. Then we have members or member. This is the owner of a non-stock corporation. Subscribers, these are those persons who agreed to pay, no, the share in the future time. Promoters, these are those people who bring about the formation and organization of the corporation. Underwriters are usually investment bankers that are partners in selling stocks, not to buyers. Then, lastly, independent director is a director of the corporation that will protect the owner from any unnecessary act of other directors, because ito independent director, ito yung director na walang direct contact, no? Or I mean, hindi siya kasama doon sa day-to-day na operation. So, for example, hindi siya president, hindi siya officer na ng corporation. So, independent director, say, parang magiging um, representation siya, no, ng mga minority na mga shareholders. Kasi knowing that wala siyang um, wala siyang or hindi siya kasama, no, sa operations talaga, no. So hindi siya hands-on dun sa operations ng company. Mag ano lang siya, mag-participate lang siya in the policy, no, policy formulation, for example, no. So mas magiging objective yung independent director, na as compared to those directors na um, kasama doon sa pagmamanage na ng operations, day-to-day operations of the corporation. Okay? Then we have the rights of shareholders. We have now they have this rights na to receive certificate of stock, no, para meron siyang evidence of ownership, to attend vote in person or by proxy at shareholders meeting, to elect and remove directors, adopt, amend, or repeal bylaws, preemptive right. So yung preemptive right class, this is the right of the shareholder na maunang mabigyan, no, in case merong mga bagong i-issue na shares ang corporation. Receive dividends when declared. So again, dividends is a form of profit sharing, no? Profit distribution in a corporation. Inspect corporate books and the right to participate upon the solution. So what are the types of shares? So in a corporation, take note, it is, or the ownership is represented by shares, no? So shares, ano yung mga types of shares? We have a par value share. So here, pag sinabi ng par value share, this is a share that has a minimum issue price. Pag sinabing no par value share, this is a share without minimum issue price. Minimum stated value of share or minimum stated value share, this is a no par value share that has no stated price. So kung wala siyang stated price, the minimum issue price is 5 pesos. So you cannot sell, no, this share at an amount less than 5 pesos. Pwede rin namang voting or non-voting share. So pag sinabing voting share, these are those shares that has the right to vote. Example nito ay yung mga ordinary shares. So ordinary shares have voting rights. Meron namang mga shares na walang voting, wala siyang, paki-correct nito class ha. Non-voting share is a share that has no right nga RIGHT, no right to vote, wala siya right to vote. So example nito will be preference shares. So ordinary and preference shares. So ordinary, that has the voting right. And take note, itong ordinary shares, meron siyang voting right. Tapos, in case na the corporation will issue only one class of share, then it must be an ordinary share. So, dapat lahat ng corporation mag-i-issue talaga ng ordinary share. So, that's the basic na share. So it has the voting right. Now, on the other hand, your preference share, has privileges over ordinary shares. However, yung preference shares, wala siyang voting right. So if your intention of being a shareholder na of a corporation is to gain control, for example, then you should be buying ordinary shares rather than preference shares because ang preference shares wala siyang voting rights. Another is promotion share. It's a share given as fee for promoters. So during the earlier stage of the corporation. Then treasury share or treasury stock. This is a buyback share of the corporation. So ibig sabihin class, itong shares na to, they are previously issued. No, in-issue na sila. Originally, na-issue na sila. Kaso lang, the corporation has decided to reacquire it. No? Iba-buyback nila yung share na na-issue nila previously. Another is convertible share. So, these are the share that has capacity to be converted. So, depende, no? Say, for example, preference. Usually, these are preference shares which are convertible into ordinary shares. So, yun, no? Pwede mo siyang palitan. No? The shareholders has the option to replace or convert the shares into some other class of shares. Then you have redeemable share. Ito yung shares which may be purchased by the corporation from the holders of such shares upon the expiration of a fixed period. So, pag sinabing redeemable, anytime the corporation can call in, no? I-acquire balik ng corporation ang mga redeemable shares. Okay, so what's the business structure of a corporation? So, it has the shareholders or members now will vote to elect board of directors or trustees. Then the board of directors or trustees will elect officers. And then officers will then hire employees. So, yun yung structure no, ng isang corporation. So, the highest governing body will be your board of directors or trustees in case of non-stock corporation. So, the president of the corporation must be a director and hire a secretary and treasurer as he cannot act as treasurer or secretary. Okay, then we have the different books and records. Different books and records or the corporate books and records na maintained of course by the corporation. So unang-una of course, meron pa rin tayo mga books of accounts. So books of accounts for recording all business or corporate transactions. So if they are using special journals, no? So they will have more or less 5 na journals, no? Your special journals plus your general journal. Na yung lahat ng books no, or records mo of your business transactions. Another is ito minutes or minutes book no, for minutes of directors and shareholders meeting. Then we have also the stocks and transfer book. Ito gagamitin no, for transfer of stocks that are fully paid or unpaid by shareholders. We also have the subscription book no, for printed blank subscriptions. We also have shareholders ledger for the number of shares issued. Then subscribers ledger for subscription. And we have the stock certificate book for blank printed certificates. Okay. So what are share capital? So as we have mentioned again, in a corporation, the ownership is divided or is represented by a share. So we term it the amount as the share capital. So share that are subscribed, paid in, or secured by shareholders. So this are divided or this is divided into the following. So, pwede nating sabihin legal capital. So, ano ba yung legal capital? So, share capital, no, can be a legal capital. So, legal capital is the contributed capital by shareholders. And in case of par value shares, it is the aggregate par value of all issued and subscribed share. But in the case of no par value, the all considerations received. So, pag sinabi kasi nating legal capital class, ito yung capital, ito yung share capital na hindi mo pwedeng masauli sa mga shareholders during the lifetime of the corporation. Bakit? Because take note, 'di ba, ang corporation meron lang limited liability ang kanyang mga shareholders. So to protect the creditors, for example, kaya meron tayong legal capital. So bawal, no, hindi pwedeng isauli yung legal capital sa mga owners or sa mga shareholders during the lifetime of the corporation. Now, magkano ba yung legal capital? So sabi dito, depende kung par value share siya or no par value share. Pag par value share siya, ang legal capital is equivalent to the aggregate, no, yung total ng mga par value o total par value ng lahat ng issued and subscribed shares. Pero pag no par value, lahat ng consideration na na-receive mo when you issue the shares is considered legal capital. So, bawal isa uli sa mga owners during the lifetime of the corporation. Another term no under the share capital is share premium. So share premium, others will term this as additional paid in capital. This is the excess of the total consideration received from the par value. Then we also have authorized share capital. So pag sinabi natin authorized share capital, this is the maximum number of share a corporation can issue no, as specified in the articles of incorporation. So another terms no, for share capital, we have issued share capital. So pag sinabi natin issued share capital, these are those capital or shares that are sold and paid maybe in the hands of the shareholders or on the corporation itself. So pag sinabi nating issued share capital, again, ito yung mga shares na fully paid na. So that is why in-issue na ng corporation. So sabi niya dito, it could be in the hands of the shareholders. So ang tawag natin doon is outstanding shares. Now, if the issued share is in the hands of the shareholders, it is termed as outstanding share or outstanding share capital. Pag yung issued share naman ay nasa corporation itself, so meaning hawak-hawak ng corporation kasi reni-acquire niya after the issuance, then ang tawag doon ay treasury share. Okay? So, subscribed share capital, these are those shares that are authorized but are still not fully paid. No? So, sinubscribe lang, meron ng mga subscribers, meron nang nag-pledge no, para mag-subscribe or mag-avail ato nga mga shares. However, hindi pa sila fully paid. So, outstanding share capital, again, as I've explained, outstanding share capital are mga issued share capital na in the hands of the shareholders. Kung treasury share put or treasury stock, these are issued capital, no? Sold na siya, paid, but in the hands of the corporation because nga, binili ulit ng corporation, rini-acquire ni corporation. Okay, so let us now proceed to the accounting side. So we have the issuance of share capital, no? So your share capital or your shares, no, can be issued for different considerations. No? So yun sa nimo pagbaligya, no? When you sell or when you issue your share capital, posible na nakadawat og cash ang corporation. So you issued it for cash. Pwede naman na you issued it in exchange of property, tangible or intangible, no? Na dawat sa corporation and necessary or convenient for its use and lawful purposes at fair valuation equal to the par or issued value of the stock issued. So yan no, pwede di ay ang shares ato ang i-issue in exchange of a property whether tangible or intangible. Pwede rin ang consideration is labor performed for or services actually rendered to the corporation. So for example, ang lawyer, no, iyahang mga professional fees or mga legal fees, no, imbis kay bayaran siya cash, gi-issue ka na lang siya o shares na sa corporation. Pwede po na previously incurred indebtedness of the corporation, no, pwede pakang na lang na mag-issue kog shares para ang katong imo ang creditor sa una mahimo ng shareholder nimo. Then amounts transferred from unrestricted retained earnings to stated capital. Outstanding shares exchanged for stocks in the event of reclassification or conversion. Shares of stock in another corporation or other generally accepted form of consideration. So pwede no, these are the possible considerations nga madawat nato when we issue our stocks or shares. So, unahin natin yung issuance ng shares with par value for cash. So, we have here cases. So, we have the first case here. How are you going to account for a share with par value? And it was issued at par value yun. So, meaning the issue price is equivalent to the par value. So this is the example or illustration. Suppose that the share had par value of 100 per share and sold, no, the corporation sold 20,000 shares. So that's 20,000 times 100, 2 million. So to record that transaction, so you're going to debit cash for 2 million and credit ordinary shares. So this is now your equity account, no, ordinary shares, 2 million. So for case 2, what if the issue price is above par value? So say for example, yung par value ay 100 per share, 20,000 yung in-issue, and the consideration is 150 per share. No? So, ang gibayad sa iya is equivalent to 150 per share. So, that's 20,000 times 150. That's 3 million. So, the corporation received cash in the amount of 3 million. Tapos, mag-credit tayo ng ordinary shares. Take note class, no? Since this is a par value share, ang i-credit lang natin sa ating ordinary shares is equivalent lang sa par value. So, that's 20,000 times 100. So, 2 million. And ang excess, i-credit natin sa share premium ordinary shares, no, in the amount of 1 million. So, again, pag merong excess, no, doon sa issue price over the par value, yung excess natin ay i-credit natin to share premium. Okay, next we have case 3. What if, no, the stock or the share has no par value? So example here, suppose no, na mahalinan ka og 20,000 ka shares for 800,000 pesos. So if that's the case, kapag wala siyang par value class, tas wala ring stated value yung no par value share, so lahat ng consideration natin, i-credit natin lahat sa share capital. So in this case, debit ka ng cash, 800,000, credit ka ng ordinary shares, 800,000. For case 4, no, issuance with no par value but with stated value. So example, nahalinan ka 20,000 shares for 800,000 pesos, tapos meron siyang stated value na 20 pesos per share. So if this is the case, you have two options, no? Pwede mo siyang i-record using these two options here. So generally, you're going to record the transaction as debit to cash 800,000, credit to ordinary shares at 800,000. Kasi 'di ba sabi natin pag no par value share, ang legal capital is equivalent din sa total consideration received. So pag no par value ito, so you might as well credit everything to your share capital. Alternatively, pwede din ganito, no? I-debit mo ang cash na 800,000, you credit ordinary shares at 400,000. So that is actually 20,000 times your stated value of 20 pesos. So that's 400,000. And yung sobra, share premium ordinary shares. Now, just take note no, that if you will be asked, for example, magkanong legal capital. So considering that this is a no par value share, so even if dito sa alternative approach is sineparate mo ang ordinary share sa share premium ordinary share, so take note that when you're asked of the legal capital, your legal capital would still be 800,000. Kasi 'di ba pag no par value, the legal capital is really equivalent to the whole consideration or to all of the consideration received no, for that issuance of shares. Okay, next is the share subscription. Okay, for the share subscription, um, sabi natin, pwede kasi na yung mga potential mo na shareholders eh wala pang pera, no? Hindi pa sila makapag fully paid agad. So they can just subscribe no to the shares. So what is this share subscription? This is any contract for the acquisition of an issued stock in an existing corporation or a corporation still to be formed na shall be deemed a subscription within the meaning of this title, notwithstanding the fact that the parties refer to it as a purchase or some other contract. So again, pag sinabi nitong share subscription, it's a contract no na merong tao or merong individual or no or corporation ba na willing to purchase the shares. So ilang buhaton mag-subscribe lang sa sila. Of course, they will be paying more na siya down payment, no? Kanang natay ginatawag nga paid in, required nga paid in capital with that subscription. So, ang mahitabo, of course, kay wala pa man, dili pa man siya fully paid. The moment nga nag-subscribe siya, mag-recognize po ka o receivable. Okay, so we have here an example, no? A problem related to share subscription just to show you kung unsa ang mga possible transactions sa share subscription. So suppose that Anna subscribe 1,000 shares at 120 per share with par value of 80 per share. So if you're going to record the subscription, what you're going to debit is of course your subscriptions receivable. Subscriptions receivable shall be debited at 120,000. That is actually 1,000 pesos, or sorry, 1,000 shares times 120 pesos per share. Tapos magki-credit tayo ng subscribe share capital at par value. So that's 1,000 times 80 no, per share. So that's 80,000. Yung sobra, we credit it to share premium ordinary shares. So OS here is ordinary shares. Now, the second transaction is meron ng collection no, or payment on the or from the subscriber. 40% binayaran na ng subscriber. So 40% of 120,000, that is 48,000. So we debit cash 48,000, we credit subscription receivable 48,000. So parang just recording a collection of your subscription or subscriptions receivable. Number 3, now pay the remaining balance. So the subscriber no fully paid na or fully pay na niya iyahang balance. So we debit cash and credit subscriptions receivable for 72,000 no, para sa kulang 120 minus 48 equals 72,000. Now, since fully paid na yung ating subscription receivable or 'di ba mar na-paid naman ang ato ang subscription. So what you can do now is since fully paid naman, pwede ka nang mag-issue ng shares. No, tagaan na nimo share certificate ang imong subscriber because fully paid na iya ang subscription. So with that, itong second entry dito, this is actually to record the um this is to record the issuance of shares not to the subscriber kasi nga fully paid na siya. So ang ginawa, dinebit ang subscribe share capital 80,000 and credit ordinary shares for 80,000. So please take note of the entries here because without these figures here, for example, para na siya magiging pro forma entry. So pag sinabi nating, for example, no, subscription. So subscription na above sa par value ang subscription price, then most probably your entry will be like this. Debit ka ng subscriptions receivable, credit ka ng subscribe share capital, credit ka ng share premium for the excess. So, depende na lang sa amount. Ito naman, pag nakakolekta ng subscription, so ang pro forma entry mo will be a debit to cash and credit to subscriptions receivable. Tapos, ito, collection din ito, di ba? And then, kapag fully paid na, there's another entry, yung issuance na ng share capital. So again, without this mga figures here or depende on the problem, kung pila ang amount diri, you can just um, make this or take note of this as the pro forma entries. So pag fully paid na, mag-issue na ng shares. So you just debit the subscribe share capital and credit ordinary shares. So 'di ba kasi if you can still recall when we recorded the subscription originally, sample diri, di ba pag record nato sa subscription diri, ato siyang i-credit sa subscribe share capital. So pag ma-fully paid na siya, so kanang subscribe share capital tanggalon nato sa tang records, pulihan nato siya og ordinary shares. No, to just to recognize the issuance of shares. Okay? Now, if we are talking about subscriptions, there's really a possibility na meron tayong mako-consider ng delinquent shares. So, ano sa man ang mga delinquent shares, no? So, the board of directors may, by resolution, order the sale of delinquent shares and shall specifically state the amount due on its subscription plus accrued interest and the date, time, place of the sale, which shall not be less than 30 days nor more than 60 days from the date of stock become delinquent. So before going into that details, no, so bakit nga ba naging delinquent yung share? So again, this is still related to uh, subscriptions no, or share subscriptions. Kasi 'di ba pag share subscription, inutang muna, nangutang muna yung subscriber. Hindi niya pinuli pay. Pero nag-promise siya, of course, a certain number of shares and certain amount, no? Yung subscriptions price na pledge niya. Now, in the event that the board of directors will call the shares or the subscription, ibig sabihin, um, parang naniningil na yung corporation no, sa mga subscribers. Now, pag hindi nakabayad si subscriber sa due no na what was the agreement before. So kung hindi niya ma-comply yung mga payments, schedule of payments. So for after giving all the notices for example, no, so after exhausting all the means, the shares will be considered as delinquent. So pag delinquent na yung shares, ano yung gagawin ng board of directors? Ito na yung gagawin niya or nila, no? They may sale no they may sell the delinquent shares. So pwede nila ibaligya ang delinquent shares. So specify lang nila kung pila no ang amount due. So most probably kung pila tong balanse sa yang subscription receivable plus accrued interest plus mga other penalties no as identified by the board of directors, and mag-specify siya og time or date time, place asa siya may tabo ang sale. So it should not be less than 30 days nor more than 60 days from the date the stock become delinquent. So ilang buhaton pa-public auction sila. So we have here an example for delinquent shares. Suppose that Anna, after paying the 40,000, after paying the 40%, could not pay the remaining subscription anymore. So the subscription now are called by the board of directors at due date. Thus, the share become delinquent or becomes delinquent. So the 1,000 share of Anna will now be in auction and waiting for the person who will pay for the full amount plus interest and cost of advertisement for the smallest number of share. So, itong person na to who is willing to pay for the full amount plus the interest and cost, no, at a smallest number of shares will be your highest bidder. So, in this particular case, no, the subscription to is 72,000. This is the balance of your subscriptions receivable. Tapos your interest is 15,000 and the expenses is 11,000. So, if you add them all, that's 98,000. Now, we have three bidders here sa baba. Si Jose, Juan, o si Maria. So, Jose will pay, no, is willing to pay the full amount of 98,000 at 650,000 share, 650 shares. So, meaning, Jose will take the 650 shares at 98,000, no? So, mabayad siya og 98,000, unya, ang 650 shares ta iyang kwaon. Actually, may tabuan ni, ang remaining shares, no, will be given also to the original subscriber. So, Juan, willing po siya mabayad og 98,000, pero ang i-take lang na share is 630 shares. And then Maria will also pay the full amount, tapos 680 shares lang. Now, who is the highest bidder of these three bidders, no? So, makonsider nato si Juan as the highest bidder. Why? Because he is willing to pay the whole amount of 98,000 for the smallest number of share. So, i-take lang niya ang 630 shares, no, for his payment of 98,000. So, how do we account for that? So, suppose, no, si Juan ang atong highest bidder. So, atong buhaton, i-record na to itong transactions related to the delinquent share. So, first is we record the interest. So, you debit receivable from highest bidder, 15,000. Credit interest revenue for 15,000. Another entry para sa mga expenses nga imong na-incur, receivable from highest bidder, credit cash 11,000. Now, kung magbayad na si highest bidder, magbayad na si Juan, ma-debit ka og cash, of course, 98,000. Receivable from highest bidder, this should be credited class. Paki-indent na lang, kulang lang siya isang tab, no? So, indent lang 26,000 diri. So, credit subscriptions receivable na 72,000. Okay? So, that will be your entry. Now, when you collected the amount of 98,000 cash from the highest bidder, in our case, that was Juan. And then, since fully paid naman yung ating subscription, we can now issue our certificates. So, we debit subscribe share capital and credit ordinary shares at 80,000. So, again, 80,000 should be indented. Paki-tab na lang kaisa. So, if the corporation shall not see any bidder, so wala siyang mga bidders, then the corporation can buy back na the shares. So, kung i-buy back sa corporation, i-debit na sa treasury stock, 72,000, credit receivable from highest bidder, 26,000, and credit subscriptions receivable at 46,000. Okay? So, that's how you account for delinquent shares. So let us now proceed to treasury stocks naman. So ano ba yung treasury stock or as what we have encountered kanina, treasury share. Pareho lang sila. So what are these shares or what are these treasury stocks? So these are shares that are previously issued but are reacquired by the corporation. So what are the possible reasons no why a corporation would wish to reacquire the stocks no from the shareholders or gusto nilang kuhaon no from the shareholders. So one reason would be they want na dili ma-take over ang company. Kaya kung daghan taog na-issue nga shares, no, basi buta kabalo nga ang namalit sa toang shares sa ato anang kalaban. So again, that's one reason no nganong i-buyback sa corporation ang mga na-issue nila nga shares, no, para dili walay threat of kanang takeover no sa iyang corporation. Okay, so let's go to the accounting for treasury stocks. So we have here supposed no, that the company repurchased its 10,000 shares from shareholders at 150 per share. And the par value of this share is 80. It was originally issued at 120 pesos. So to record the reacquisition of the previously issued shares, so we debit treasury stock at 1,500,000. So that is 10,000 times 150 per share. Then you credit cash na at 1.5 million. Now, so nasa iyong kamay na yung treasury stock. So yung treasury stock na nasa kamay ng corporation, dalawa lang ang pwedeng mangyari dyan. So either i-reissue ng corporation or i-retire na ng corporation. So say for example, they have or they're going to reissue it, no? Kung i-reissue nila ang treasury stocks, ang mahitabuan ni class, no? Say for example here, assuming that they are going to reissue, no, the shares, no, 2,000 shares at cost. So they purchased it initially, they repurchased it at 150 pesos per share. So i-reissue nila also at 150 per share. So if that's the case, then we simply debit cash no at 300,000. That's 2,000 times 150 and credit treasury stock. Okay, let's have case 2. Yun ang case 1 again, that is reissuance at cost. So what if na-reissue yung treasury stock above cost? So take note again, remember that our cost is 150 pesos per share. So this time, na-reissue daw yung treasury stocks at 200 per share. So how are you going to record the transaction? We debit cash at 600,000. That's 3,000 times 200. So that's 600,000. Then we credit treasury stock at 450,000 at cost. Cost that is 3,000 times 150. And then yung sobra, we credit it to share premium treasury stock na 150. So for case 3, what if naman ang reissuance is below cost? So for example here, what if the 4,000 shares were reissued at 100 per share? So take note, ang ato abayang repurchase or reacquisition ato ang pagpalit baya sa treasury kay 150 per share. So ngaron i-reissue nimo siya at 100 lang. So what are you going to do? Mura kag na ay loss, no? Mura kag na lugi. So what is our entry? We debit cash at 400,000. It's 4,000 times 100. And then we have to decide, no? Aha man nato to i-charge ang ato ang murag loss. So proceed muna tayo sa next na slide. So remember this, no? When treasury stocks are issued below its cost, the deemed loss, no, yung murag loss, shall be charged to the following accounts in order of priority. So, kung naatay treasury stock nga i-issue below its cost, then ang murag loss ato siyang i-charge una sa share premium treasury stock kung na ay balanse. Pero kung wala, i-charge din mo siya sa retained earnings. So, balik ta dire. In this particular problem, di ba naaman tayo share premium treasury kanang 150 dire. No, kay sumpay-sumpay man ni siya nga sumpay-sumpay man ni nga transactions. So, um, ang ato ang murag loss is actually equivalent to 50 pesos times 4,000. So, that's 200,000. So, since naaman tayo share premium treasury stock nga 150, mo to sa to unahon nag-charge. So, napay sobra nga 50,000. So, katong 50,000 ato to siyang i-charge sa retained earnings. Then, credit treasury stock at 600,000. That's 4,000 times 150. Okay? So, again, you remember this, na take note of this. So, the loss in this problem is 200,000, but there is 150,000 balance of share premium treasury stock. That's why only 50,000 is recognized in the retained earnings. So, just for example, no, kung yung balance ng share premium treasury stock is 0, then the loss shall be recognized directly to the retained earnings. So, ang entry natin will be a debit to cash for 400,000, debit retained earnings at 200,000 credit treasury stock. Again, this is applicable kapag 0 yung ating share premium treasury stock. Okay? So, next natin is retirement, no? So, tapos na tayo sa reissuance ng treasury stocks. Proceed tayo sa retirement ng treasury stock. So, di ba dalawa lang man yun? Ang treasury stock na binili mo or rini-acquire ng company, posibleng ma-reissue or posible naman na i-retire na lang natin. So, suppose that all of the 10,000 shares of the shareholders with par value of the share is 80 and originally issued at 120 was retired. So, kana, no? Dili na lang niya i-reissue pero i-retire na lang niya. The par value of the share again is 80 pesos and the original issuance is 120. Now, case 1. So, retired with again. So no, the treasury stocks were previously purchased at 60 per share. So, kung inani, no, this is a different, again, problem, no? So, for example lang, par value is 80, originally issued at 120, imo siyang gi-repurchase, no? Imo siyang gi-acquire as treasury share at 60. So, mo na to siya pag-retire. So, pag mag-retire na ta class, tanggalon ginato ato ang share capital, no? So, we debit our share capital or ordinary shares at par value, that is 10,000 times 80 pesos, so manang 80,000. Tapos, we credit our treasury stock at 60,000. No, that is at cost. That's 10,000 times our cost of the treasury stock of 60 pesos. And ang sobra, we credit it to share premium treasury stock at 20,000. Okay? So, muna siya retirement with again. No, kung ato ang ato ang cost sa treasury stock ay mas gamay compared sa ato ang original issuance. Or no, kung ang ato ang balik ko na ko ha, kung ato ang pag-purchase ato ang treasury stock is mas gamay compared sa ato ang par value, no? A comparison of par value and your purchase price ng treasury stock. So, meron tayo mortag na ay gain. So, for case 2, this one is a retirement with a loss. So, here, we assume that the treasury stocks were previously purchased at 150 per share. So take note, no, 150 ato ang pagpalit, ang atong par value kay 80 ra. So most probably na moratag na lugi. So to retire this treasury stock, again we debit our uh, ordinary shares at par value 80,000. So before I present no this entry, let me proceed muna to the next slide. Okay, kani. So again, this one, again, you remember this. Kapag you are retiring no, a treasury stock and there is a loss on retirement, that loss on retirement shall be absorbed by the following accounts in order of priority. So first is the share premium sa original issuance, kung meron. Second, the share premium from treasury share issuance. And last na yung retained earnings. So in our case, here, okay, in our case here, there was original there was a share premium no from the original issuance. Why? Because originally it was issued at 120, tapos ang iya arang par value is 80. So na ay 40 pesos na premium, so times 10,000, that is 40,000. So manang gi-debit niya una sa share premium ordinary shares na 40,000. And ang sobra nga wala na absorb dito sa share premium ordinary share is gi-debit niya sa retained earnings na at 30,000. So kintahay na ay information nga na ay share premium treasury share or treasury stock, kwaon sa to ni i-exhaust sa to nimo tong amount na related to share premium treasury stock ay pa ka mokuha sa retained earnings. Pero again, in this case, wala man tay information nga na share premium treasury stock, so mo nang diretso ta sa retained earnings ang charge na 30,000. Then credit treasury stock at its cost of 150,000. So again, remember this, no? Now let us proceed to the retained earnings and dividends na concept, no? So retained earnings class no, is somehow somewhat unique also to incorporation, no? So kasi itong retained earnings na to, this is an equity account. Kasi basically ang sa corporation, iyang gi-separate ang ang yang equity section manggod, yang ang equity portion niya subdivided into portions, no? So naa siya contributed capital og napad siya sa retained earnings. Napag gani siya ginatawag nga reserves. No? So unsa may naa kung kato sa contributed capital didto ang ipanulat, no, or didto naka-appeal ang mga ordinary shares no, mga share capital katong mga contributions gid sa owners or sa mga shareholders diri sa retained earnings class. Now this is an equity account which is used to accumulate the profits earned by the corporation or the losses incurred no by the corporation. So in short, kung positive ning retained earnings, pasabot ana naay mga previous pa no nga mga profit ang corporation. So natigom na dira sa retained earnings. Kung negative po na siya, pasabot na tayo ginatawag nga deficit. Ha? So kung nag-negative na siya, siguro no in the past daghan na kayog losses nga na-absorb ang corporation. Wala negative iya ang retained earnings. Now, ngano na istoryahan ang retained earnings diri because no when you close for example no kato magbuhat og closing entries sa atong accounting cycle, kung corporation na siya class, we are going to use retained earnings to close our profit or loss of the corporation. So mo ni siyang account title nga atong gamiton, unlike partnership or sole proprietorship nga mogamit ka og capital account no sa sole proprietorship tas drawing account for the partnership. So there is a corporation, um, retained earnings will be your account, no? Nga, mahimong window sa imo ang prior periods. Merong window man sa prior periods because if you have corrections, for example, if you have prior period errors, for example, dahil mga corrections sa prior years, ipaagi nimo siya sa retained earnings, especially if that correction has something to do with income or expense, no, na related pa sa prior nga periods. Okay? So, another is yung dividends. So, kung mag-isip mo kung retained earnings, since this is the accumulated profits or losses of the corporation, so dili malikayan nga makasgot po ta og dividends. Kaya sobrang dividends. Dividends is a means of profit distribution in a corporation. So, more nagpagpahinbahin na sa ato ang profit or losses. But take note, class ha, when we talk about dividends, dili jud oblige ang corporation nga mohatag og dividends kada tuig. It is only or it becomes an obligation of the corporation only if the board of directors will declare dividends, no? So diha lang na ay obligasyon ang corporation nga mobayad og dividends. So magdepende siya sa announcement or sa resolution ng board of directors. Okay? So the board of directors of a stock corporation may declare dividends out of the unrestricted retained earnings. So which shall be payable in cash, property, or in stock to all stockholders on the basis of outstanding stock held by them. So take note, no, ang basis sa dividends declaration is or katong mga entitled to receive the dividends will be itong mga outstanding na mga shares. So, yung mga shares na issued and in the hands of the shareholders. Okay? So, one example is your cash dividends. So, maghatag og dividends in the form of cash. So, cash dividends is a dividend in a form of cash. It is a majority of dividends declared by the corporation. So, money kasagara. In declaring the dividends, the company must ensure that they have sufficient and appropriate amount of retained earnings and in cash, of course, no? Then issued shares, fully paid, and all subscribed par value shares are all entitled to dividends if the company declared. Whereas for no par value shares, they're considered as legally issued only when they are fully paid. So in short, pag no par value share, only mga issued shares are entitled, no, to dividends. So, mga unissued share at treasury shares, they are not entitled to dividends kapag no par value yung share. So, we have here three important dates that you have to remember. So, first, this one is in relation to dividends, no? So, first is the date of declaration. Second is the date of record. And the third is the date of payment. So when you say date of declaration, this is the date, no, that the company recognizes obligation for the dividends. So in short, this is also the day, uh, usually in a board meeting, no, na gagawa ng board resolution ang mga board of directors na magde-declare sila ng dividends. So on that day, meron tayong journal entry. So what you're going to do is you debit retained earnings. So by debiting retained earnings, you are actually reducing your retained earnings. So, kasi this is an equity account, so its normal balance is credit. And then we credit cash dividends payable at the amount, of course, no, specified. Now, the second date or important date is the date of record. The date of record. This is the date that is considered as the cutoff for shareholders to receive dividends, no? And there's no entry required, no, for this date. So, ang gagawin lang is, on this day, ipa-finalize lang kung sino-sino yung mga shareholders na makaka-receive ng dividends. Then, last one with the date of payment. So, this is the date of settling all, double L, the liabilities related to dividends of the company. So, and that on that date of payment, of course, meron tayong entry. Debit ka lang ng cash dividends payable as what you have credited here and credit cash for the same amount. So we have here an illustration for the cash dividends. So the PPG Corporation declares 2 pesos per share cash dividends for the 300,000 ordinary shares and 20,000 subscribed shares. So the par value of the shares are 50 pesos per share on March 1, 2020. Recorded on March 20, 2020 and paid on April 10, 2020. So the company has sufficient cash and retained earnings for the dividends. So your date of declaration is March 1. So your entry then will be a debit to retained earnings, 640,000, cash dividends payable at 640,000. So paano kinompute yun? That's 300,000 outstanding plus 20,000 subscribed. So that's 320,000 times 2 pesos per share na cash dividend. So you'll have 640,000. So on the date of record, that is March 20, wala tayong entry. So we'll just finalize the list of the shareholders who can receive the dividends. Then on April 10, that is the date of payment. So we just debit cash dividends payable and credit cash. So again, cash here should be indented. No? Kulang ng isang tab. Okay. Now, there's another form of dividends, itong share dividends. So ano naman ito? It is a it is This is the dividends that are distributed to the shareholders in the form of shares. So instead of cash ang ihatag is in the form of shares. So the shares that are to be distributed are own shares of the corporation. So again, take note it must be own shares of the corporation because if the share given is um, share ng ibang corporation, then there is not any more share dividends but rather a property dividend. It does not involve a transfer of assets. It just increases the total share capital and decreases the retained earnings. So, take note, diba, that I mentioned that in an equity section, lahi itong subsections bali. So, section sa share capital o katong contributed capital and section sa retained earnings. So, ang mahitabo lang sa share dividends is that mugamay imong retained earnings, transfer mo sa share capital. There are two types of share dividends class. So one is the small share dividends, the other is large share dividends. So what's the difference, no? So pag sinabi natin share or small share dividends, these are those share dividends that are less than 20%. Additional shares no will be distributed to shareholders. So for example, the corporation declared 10% share dividends to its shareholders of record this date, no, for example. Now, since the share dividend is only 10%, we can consider it as a small share dividends. So what is the significance, no? Bakit ano bang importante, no? Why is it important na malaman natin kung anong klaseng share dividends, no, na ang dineclare ng board of directors? Is it a small share dividend or a large share dividend? It's because magkaiba yung accounting, no? Magkaiba yung i-assign na amount pag small share dividend compared to large share dividend. So here, no, take note of this. If it is a small share dividend, the amount recorded shall be based on the fair market value of the shares being declared. Thus, the difference between the fair value and the par value shall be recognized as part of the share premium. So let's have a sample. So we have here PPJ Corporation declares 15% share dividends of the total 300,000 shares. The par value of the shares are 50,000 on March 1. So the fair value is 55 per share, recorded on March 20 and paid on April 10, 2020. Now, on the date of the declaration, you take note of the amount debited to retained earnings. So sabi natin, kasi this is a small share dividend, kasi it's less than 20%. So, dapat yung basis natin ng ating i-charge sa retained earnings shall be the fair market value at the time of the declaration. So, in this case, the fair market value of the share is 55 pesos per share. So, that is 300,000 times 15%. So that's 300,000 times 15%. So that's 45,000 shares times how much is your fair value? 55 pesos. So 45,000 times 55 pesos, that is 2,475,000. So again, this 2,475,000 is based on the fair value of the share on the date of declaration, which is 55 pesos. Okay? So, i-credit natin sa share distributable na 2,250,000. And then yung sobra, take note, share distributable here is at par value. So, that is 50 pesos times 45,000. Okay? So, yung sobra, i-credit natin sa share premium na 225,000. Okay? So, just to point out also, class, itong share distributable na to, unlike nung cash dividends payable, which is a liability, itong share distributable na to will become part of equity section in case hindi siya madidistribute on the same year. Like, for example, now when the date of the declaration is December 31, so sato pa, ang distributable kay outstanding siya as of reporting date niya December 31. So, mo reflect yun siya sa imo ang financial statements. So, imo share distributable, imo siyang i-appeal sa equity section, dili sa liability because by nature, this is not a liability. This is an equity na account. Okay? Then, sa date of record, wala tayong entry. We will just finalize the list kung sino yung makakatanggap ng share dividends. And then, the date of payment or the date of distribution, you just debit share distributable at 640,000. That's at par value. So, pila gali ito? That's 45,000 times the par value is 50 pesos. No? So, that's, uy, mali. Paki-correct na lang mga kaigsuunan. They should not be 640,000, but they should be 2,250,000. So, paki-correct na lang, please. This should be 2,250,000. So, yung ating credit na share distributable nung March 1. And then also your ordinary shares shall be credited also at par value, that is 45,000 shares times 50 pesos per share. So asagikan ang 45,000 nga shares, that is 15% times 300,000, no? Kay 15% man daw ang share dividends of the outstanding shares. So that's 45,000. Okay? Now, let us discuss naman large share dividend. So, sabi natin doon, sa small stock dividend, that's less than 20%. Tapos, yung basis ng ating i-deduct sa retained earnings is your fair market value. Now, pag large share dividends class, no, the share dividends that are more than 20%, additional shares are distributed to the shareholders. So the amount recorded shall be based on the par value of the share. So take note par value of the share. So pag large share dividend, ang atong i-debit sa retained earnings is par value lang. So wala siya premium na ma-recognize. So we have an illustration here. So what if not PPJ declares dividends at 25%? So of the total outstanding shares of 300,000. So how many shares are that's 300,000 times 25%. So that's 75,000 shares. So 75,000 shares times, take note, par value lang tayo kasi large ito. So you have 3,750,000. So that's the amount to be debited. So we credit share distributable at 3,750,000. Date of record, wala tayong entry. Date of distribution or payment. So you just debit share distributable, credit ordinary shares at 3,750,000. So that will be the last slide. So this is the end of the last lesson of the semester. So thank you very much, class, for your patience, and God bless everyone. Bye.